The contrast couldn't be more stark. India giving ambulances, vaccines, cancer medicines, all of this to Afghanistan, MRI machines, CAT scan machines, Pakistan repeatedly bombing Afghanistan. But what should one make of India's approach towards Afghanistan and the visit of Afghan foreign minister? What does it mean for the two countries, for the region, and a rattled Pakistan? In fact, Field Marshal Asim Munir, he may have sunk Pakistan even deeper given the protests that are happening and internet that's shut down not just in Rawalpindi and Islamabad, but also in other parts of Pakistan, including in some pockets in Lahore. I'll get you that story because Tehreek-e-labeik protests have intensified. But that story I'll get you in a moment. The best voices, the best domain experts on India and Afghanistan with decades of experience on ground join me to analyze the latest developments. Joining me on this special broadcast, Ambassador Vivek Karju, former ambassador to Afghanistan. Major General Sanjay Meston is former defense attaché at the Embassy of India in Kabul, Afghanistan. Dr. Tara Kartha is former director of National Security Council Secretariat who joins us on the show. Sushant Sareen is a senior fellow at the Observer Research Foundation, tracks Pakistan and Afghanistan very closely. And Professor Dr. Raghav Sharma is Director, Center for Afghanistan Studies, joins us on the show. Ambassador Karju, according to you, what's the key takeaway, the biggest outcome of Afghanistan Foreign Minister's visit to India? Is this a step finally in the right direction?
I've been waiting for this step for a very long time, Gaurav. I think I was the first person in India in the strategic community who said that we should start talking to the Taliban, and that was way back in February of 2017. I think we had opened this technical mission in 2022. Today, Jaishankar did well to announce that it will be upgraded to an embassy. We are proceeding cautiously as we should. We have not accorded diplomatic recognition to the Taliban, and I doubt whether we will be sending an ambassador anytime soon. But the mission will be opened or reopened. I think that technically that's the correct word. And we will be resuming our traditional policy, which is to recognize the effective rulers that have some kind of international recognition. That comes with diplomatic, uh, that diplomatic step comes with international recognition that the Taliban do not have. I do not think we should be party to any particular camp on Afghanistan, either the Russia or the China axis or the Western axis. We should have an independent policy. And our policy, I will sum up in these points. It has been traditional. One, we have assisted the people of Afghanistan, and I think the steps that Jaishankar announced today are in that direction. We did that all through the period of the Republic. We tried to do that even when Rabbani's government had international recognition and the Taliban were opposed to them.
So India is following a traditional line, and you say it's a step in the right direction?
If you permit me a couple of seconds more, Gaurav, I'll be grateful. Second, we've said that, look, it is for the Taliban to decide their own future. It is not for us to advise them. We are there to help. And third, and most importantly, we've indicated that we will have a security relationship because both of us are suffering terrorism from a common source. So that we will have to decide how we'll work that out. We have ways and means of working it out. I was involved in some of that process. Of course, the wheel of history has turned fully. At that stage, we were with the Northern Alliance, but now the Northern Alliance is in the dustbin of history. I doubt whether they'll return ever. And we have to deal with the Taliban. We've realistically accepted the reality. I feel we should have done that sometime sooner, but we've done it now, and that's good.
I'm glad it's happened. You're absolutely right, General Meston. This happens at a time when Pakistan has bombed Afghanistan. Is it about massive loss of Pakistani soldiers along the AFPAC border since 2021, August, more so in 2022, 2023, and 2024? Virtually 600 to 700 soldiers and security personnel and civilians every year? Or is this Pakistan's signal to Taliban for trying to improve ties with India?
Gaurav, absolutely clear. It is, the message is very, very clear by Pakistan that they are trying to convey a message to Afghanistan, that they cannot be allies with India. But as brought out by Ambassador Karju, I think I totally agree with him. We are traditional historical friends, and the kind of humanitarian assistance, health assistance, development projects, I think that has made a tremendous impact. And Indians are the most loved country by the Afghans, and the most hated is Pakistan. And even today, I spoke to some of my friends there. They were telling that we will take revenge for this bombing. And I recollect in 2013 there was an incident of Costa incident where the Pakistanis had attacked one of the outposts of Afghanistan. Let me tell you, there was a massive attack by the Afghan army, and in that the whole Afghan nation was united, including Hazaras, Tajiks, and everyone. They were standing behind their army, and I could
Okay.
see that momentum in the country. So here, right now, also the message is now clear from Afghanistan that nonsense of terrorism will not be accepted by Pakistan, by Afghanistan, and therefore it is in the national interest of India that we have realigned and reoriented our historical relationship, and therefore
Okay.
it augurs well for India. And I think
It
the way
augurs well for India. You say, Sushant Sareen, is this, as some describe, finally a step in the right direction? Too premature to call it a game changer. But look at that August 2021 picture, and I want to put that picture out for our viewers to see. August 2021, the then DG ISI, Lieutenant General Faiz Hamid, at the Serena Hotel in Kabul. Now, he was trying to signal that Pakistan was back in control of Afghanistan and had strategic depth. Right now, of course, the two pictures that we see, the bombing of Kabul and, of course, Dr. Jaishankar. But right now, look at this picture. Serena Hotel, Kabul. You have then DG ISI signaling that, he's actually thinking that they have their strategic depth back. Now Pakistan, tail between legs, with Tehreek-e-Taliban, Pakistan swatting Pakistani soldiers like flies along the AFPAC border since 2021. And look at the Afghan foreign minister and his chemistry with India's external affairs minister. Collapse for Pakistan's Afghanistan policy, Sushant Sareen?
Yeah, Gaurav, I think we should thank the Punjabi Pakistani Muslim Army for continuously making stupidest mistakes in Afghanistan and paving the way for us. So I think kudos to all the Punjabi general officers, Muslim general officers of the Pakistan Army and their stupidity, which is our greatest strategic asset insofar as Afghanistan is concerned. Second, I agree with what Ambassador Karju was saying because yes, and he and I used to have a lot of arguments about it because he was saying much before the Taliban had taken over that we should open a line of communication with the Taliban. I was among those who opposed him. And the reason for that was because at that point of time, the Taliban was still targeting us. They wanted to have a communication with us, but they also were seen as a inimical force. And we were not entirely sure if they would be Pakistani proxies or not. I think General Faiz and the ISI and the entire Pakistani military establishment ensured that they will not be Pakistani proxies. Secondly, I think what we have to understand is that we have, since 2001, when India's epitaph in Afghanistan was written, I think there is a massive, massive change which has now culminated in the visit of the Afghan foreign minister to India. And what we have done is that in a very systematic, graded manner, we have continuously upgraded our relationship with Afghanistan, in large part also because the Taliban government has been living up to its side of the bargain. They've not allowed the use of Afghan territory against India, which was one of our red lines. They have respected that. And we have moved forward by first opening up a technical mission, and now we will be reopening our embassy. frankly, I don't see any problem even if we were to restore ambassadorial relationship. That
Okay.
again does not mean that we have recognized the Taliban regime in the strict sense of the word. But if China, Russia, Pakistan, some other countries have opened up proper
Saudi Arabia,
embassies,
UAE, 13
I
countries
don't see
almost, yeah.
why India cannot do the same thing. Again, and one last point, which is, I think, very critical because that addresses the Indian public opinion, where, a lot of people will take pot shots at the government that now you are supping with the Taliban. Look, the fact of the matter is engagement with the Taliban does not amount to endorsement of everything that the Taliban stand for. We do find some of their practices abhorrent, and yet we will not let that come in the way of our engagement with the Taliban. And I think that is a pragmatic approach. After all, we have interacted with other countries in the world whose practices we don't entirely agree with. In the old
Yes.
days, Saudi Arabia, Iran for that matter, there are many things in these countries where we did not agree with them, and yet we maintained a diplomatic relationship with them.
Okay.
So why not with the Taliban?
So you
Especially
raised
if
a
they're
very
not.
pertinent point, and before I bring in Dr. Tara Kartha, permit me to bring in Ambassador Karju once again. Ambassador Karju, you advocated, engagement with the Taliban at a time when many of us were skeptical post IC 814, where they were seen as lackeys of Pakistan's ISI, where they were playing Pakistan ISI game. What made you think that we should remain engaged with them and be confident that they will not be stooges of Pakistan's ISI?
Uh, Gaurav, the following points. One, by 2017, I had reached the conclusion, and let me share with you, I've been dealing with Afghanistan in a professional capacity for the last, since 1995. And I have followed Afghanistan after my retirement since 2011 too. So it's been in all 30 years.
Sir,
Please
And
start with
permit me a brief interjection. Sir, permit me a brief interjection. My first interaction with you was when you were JS, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Iran, if I remember correctly, 1996, 97. So
that's
you're
true.
absolutely right. I sought so much guidance from you that time on relationship with Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Iran. But go on, sir. Complete your point,
So
sir.
three things. You know, and I hesitate to say this, the Northern Alliance people were my friends.
Yes.
Personally, professionally, I respected them, I dealt with them. And at that stage, we were aligned with Iran and Russia to stop the Taliban. As I said, the wheels of history always turn. But at all times, I was conscious of what the Taliban were signaling to us. And that was that please don't think that we are stooges of Pakistan. And anyone who understands the Afghan psyche, particularly the Pashtun psyche, knows that there are no stooges. There was a marriage of convenience. And I was worried not, and I'll share this with you, I was worried not for the long term, but I was worried that how would it pan out in the first couple of years between the Taliban and the Pakistanis. It was the interregnum that worried me. So I thought that the decision that we took in 2021 to withdraw the embassy was correct. Why? Not because of the Taliban would not protect, but because of the games that Pakistan at that stage and the unsettled conditions
Yes.
could play. That is what had worried me. So I said, this is good. But once I was
Okay.
clear that things are more or less settled, then it was a question of our interest and our return and the opening of the embassy. Of course, in that process, I lost a lot of my Northern Alliance friends who said, Vivek, what
Yes.
the hell are you doing? You were part of the group. If you permit me an Afghan word or a Dari word, they said, तुम तो हमारे हम संगर हो. तुम अब ये कह रहे हो? So I used to tell them I'm an Indian and my priority is India's interest first of all, but this is not about
It's
me. So
absolutely India first.
my
Absolutely.
reading was clear. My reading was that the uh, the the republic cannot cohere for reasons
Yes.
that we can't go into here because there are a whole lot of reasons, and that the Taliban were coming, and that since
Yes.
they were signaling to us, don't take us as Afghan puppets, as Pakistani puppets, and I accepted that. So that
Fair
is
enough.
why I
Let me
started
bring
saying,
in,
open up with them.
yes, let me bring in Dr. Tara Kartha now. Amir Khan Muttaqi indicates that India-Afghanistan ties have been improving for the past 4 years. So was Pakistan actually dreaming of regaining that strategic depth, and India has pulled the rug under Pakistan's feet? I mean, from healthcare to education to infrastructure, India gives life. Pakistan bombs Afghanistan, gives death. Is Afghanistan safe for India in your view, ma'am?
I think it is. At first, I just want to back what Ambassador Karju said, 100%, because they were the kind of life which many of these Afghan leaders had in Pakistan was terrible. So they didn't have actually any need to have any great love for Pakistan, and all of us knew that. So I completely back what Ambassador says. But in this case, like you said, I think India has done a very slow increase in our engagement with Afghanistan. I would again have liked it to go a little faster in terms of education, etc. Because there's a lot we are doing on the ground. We ask them, what do you like today? You are asking them, what do you want? And then those projects are then tailored according to them. And you should see the kind of welcome the Afghans get here. There is so much warmth. But having said that, there is a slight problem here, is that the Kandahar lot, I don't know whether they are on board in this. That is my only reservation. Because the Kandahar lot has the mullahs which are surrounding him are all
Yes.
Pakistani educated, Pakistani trained. You don't think so? Okay, perhaps I'm wrong. Perhaps. But then I don't know
Okay.
whether the Kandahar lot is there.
Okay, 30 seconds, Ambassador Kaju, before I bring in Dr. Raghav Sharma. Ambassador
Look,
Kaju.
I think Raghav, I greatly admire Raghav's Afghan scholarship. But my own understanding is that Mutaki could not have taken this step unless it was approved by the
Kandahar.
Amirul Momineen Hebatullah and
Okay.
Hebatullah's people, including Baradar and Mullah Hasan Akhund. There are tensions between Mashriq and Kandahar, but I think on one point they are common, that they have to open up with India and that they will not be subservient to Pakistan. The closest to Pakistan are the Haqqani people, but even
Yes.
with the Haqqani people, you see the Pakistanis do things and they expect things in return. With the Afghan, my experience has shown me that you do things and you forget about it. I'll add this, Gaurav, because I think it's important today. We are launching again a new assistance program, right?
Okay.
One should never tell the Afghan that we are assisting you. We should, and when I was ambassador, I ensured that it was never written gift from the people of Afghanistan. I used to say
India.
people in Afghanistan know where it is coming from. And if you permit me, हाथ यूं करना बहुत मुश्किल होता है, आंख झुकती है, किसी को जिल्लत किसी की नहीं करते, मदद करते हैं और मदद करके भूल जाते हैं.
Dr. Raghav Sharma, Pakistan bombing Afghanistan and the skirmishes along the AFPAC border, do they signal how rattled Pakistan is today? And in your appreciation, in your scholarship, says that likely to escalate in the times ahead? Or will Pakistan secretly now try and mend fences, whether it is, through the Kandahar lobby of the Taliban?
Clearly, the timing of the attack is very significant. It comes against the backdrop of Muttaqi's visit to Delhi. And, the Pakistanis have been deeply unsettled by the fact that the Afghan Taliban have not shied away from quoting India. And this comes against the backdrop of the fact that there have been tensions in the relationship between the Afghan Taliban and Pakistan over the question of the TTP. There's been a secular increase in violence. If you look at the statistics, last year alone, violence has gone up by 300% in Pakistan. So there's been a secular increase essentially in violence that the TTP has carried out. In fact, this is not surprising. The Pakistanis have experimented with the same policy for the last 30 to 40 years, but they expect different results. They backed the Mujahideen against Russia, hoping essentially to pull the Afghans away from India's influence. essentially what we see is that the Rabbani government warmed up to India once they were in power. We had something similar play out, this time around as well. In fact, even the last time around, the Taliban were in power in the 1990s. You had a whole bunch of groups mimicking the Taliban's agenda, acquiring reverse strategic depth in Pakistan. So this is not something new. This is not something that the Pakistanis are experiencing the first time. So it's a little perplexing that they keep sort of repeating the same mistake, but they expect different outcomes each time.
In fact, their troubles only seem to be escalating. And give me a moment, because gentlemen, I want and Dr. Tarakartha, I want your reaction on this. That other big story that we are tracking on India today is Islamabad now becoming Containeristan, or a container city. Look at these images on your television screens. Look at these images. Internet shutdown in Islamabad, internet shutdown in Rawalpindi. Some of these images, tension also in Lahore as Tehreek-e-labeik protests escalate. This massive march in favor of Gaza has turned violent in various cities. It's happened in Islamabad, Lahore, Rawalpindi. Tehreek-e-labeik protesters. Watch this image very closely. So that's Saad Rizvi. Saad Rizvi is leading these protests against the Gaza genocide and Pakistan government's betrayal. That's the terminology being used by the Tehreek-e-labeik, and the protesters complained that police opened fire on protesters. Look at these images. Now they're saying that police opened fire on protesters, in some instances at point-blank range. More than 200 Tehreek-e-labeik activists have been detained in 45 different locations. Now Pakistan is imposing Section 144 that bans the gathering of people. That's in place till tomorrow. Roads to Islamabad have been sealed. Containers have been put. There's a red zone that's been declared inside Islamabad. Heavy tear gas shells. Watch these images. It's happening in Islamabad, it's happening in Lahore. We are also told the highway, Punjab Khyber Pakhtunkhwa highway, has now been blocked. The US Embassy has warned citizens to avoid crowds due to heightened risk of violence. Schools and colleges and shops in Lahore were closed today. Full internet shutdown in Pakistan. Let me once again bring in Sushant Sareen. Field Marshal Asim Munir seems to have bitten more than he can chew. He may have enjoyed that free lunch with Donald Trump at the White House, but it's time for him to foot the bill. The Tehreek-e-labeik protests, Sushant, are they likely to escalate? These pro-Gaza, anti-Israel sentiment prevailing across Pakistan?
I don't think they'll escalate too much at this point in time, but please remember that the Tehreek-e-labeik Pakistan is now the single largest religious political party in Pakistan. It outstrips old traditional parties like the Jamaat-e-Islami and the JUI. And you can't underestimate the power of these guys, especially because they represent the underclass and they have very potent slogans, which makes them a very, very dangerous force. But the irony is that they are carrying out agitation on Gaza after things have settled down in Gaza. But I think the reason why they're doing this is because they see Pakistan moving in the direction of perhaps recognizing Israel, or at least that's the suspicion. So they are agitating now, and this is what happens when you raise these bands of fanatics to counter one fanatical group, you raise another fanatical group, which is something which they've done in Afghanistan as well. For example, you have ISKP being sponsored by the Pakistanis very surreptitiously to take on the Afghan Taliban and as a counterforce to the Afghan Taliban. But this is, Punjabi racism which is coming out. This is Punjabi Muslim contempt for the Pashtun which is coming out, and his arrogance is being reflected not just on the streets of Lahore and Islamabad, but also in their approach towards Afghanistan, which incidentally they bombed not necessarily because Muttaqi was visiting India, but because of an ambush in which about 17 or 18 Pakistani soldiers were killed. So
One colonel,
this is
one major, 17 men, and the total number, Sushant, correct me if I'm wrong, 15 the last couple of days. The overall number since 2021 it runs into several hundreds, if not thousands.
Yes, it does. It does run into several hundreds. We don't exactly know the exact numbers because the Pakistanis hide the numbers and they give inflated estimates of the casualties of TTP and other Islamist jihadist groups which are operating in their area because they want to balance it out. So if 7 soldiers are killed, they will inevitably say that 8 or 9 or 10 of the Mujahideen were also killed
Yes.
in retaliatory action, which is utter nonsense. Most of the time,
Yes.
nothing of the sort happens.
So
These are
let me
guys who
bring in Dr. Tara Kartha for a moment. Dr. Kartha, multiple fires, it appears, are being lit up that are burning Baluchistan, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, soldiers being killed, now Lahore, Islamabad, Rawalpindi. What explains Pakistan bombing Afghanistan when it's burning within? And would this not increase troubles for Pakistan?
Gaurav, I mean, don't forget POK is also burning at some point.
Yes.
Gaurav, this TLP, I have the gravest suspicions of it because I can't get rid of that image of, money being paid out to these guys. You remember earlier?
Yes,
How
by
they,
Pakistani army generals paying
Yeah.
money during that Faizabad interchange sit-in.
Yes, absolutely. And then being used to prop up Imran Khan, then he being used against him. So sorry. At a time when Pakistan is under pressure on the Abraham Accords, suddenly the TLP gets active. So I have my gravest suspicions. Maybe it's got out of control. I don't know. But these guys are at the beck and call, and they have no. I mean, you've got Fazlur Rahman now saying, let's talk to India. The other
Yes.
Islamist parties are now scared of the TLP. So things are changing fast. But this bombing is like the gentleman from the university said. The fact that it happened on a day Mutakis visits India is, I mean, that cannot be coincidence. Though there is something a little intriguing, which perhaps the ambassador would like to take on, is that
Okay.
earlier when Mutaki tried to come in, they blocked his move because they are sitting on the sanctions committee. This
Yes.
time they didn't. So
Yes.
it's a kind of, I have a feeling they were put under pressure and said, don't block it. So the Mutaki comes, but they want to do something anyway. So they go and bomb. This is, like Sushant said, the typical stuff which the army does. They get themselves into trouble. They are going to regret this.
Dr. Sharma, will Afghanistan-Pakistan relations deteriorate, and should India increase either investment or engagement in Afghanistan, or will our personnel be unsafe in Afghanistan? They've been targeted before. When IC-814 was hijacked in December 1999, Ambassador Karju knows that so well. Ajit Doval, the current national security advisor, was also there negotiating on ground. But right now, they've targeted the Indian embassy in 2008. We lost a defense attaché. We lost a diplomat. Our consulates have been targeted. Will our personnel be safe in Afghanistan now?
Well, the perpetrators of those attacks are now in power, I think I'd agree with Ambassador Karju that what we've seen is a calibrated ramping up of the relationship. It's come late, rather late in the day, but I think it's a welcome move. What I would certainly be interested to see is India, not only ramping up its engagement, but adding more substance to that engagement by actually walking the talk on people-to-people ties. Education visas, medical visas have been long-running demands that the Afghans have had. I think the door was shut on many Afghans very unfairly for education, and that is something that we should seriously be looking at to actually give meaningful traction to the relationship, because that is what also created large constituencies of goodwill for India in Afghanistan. Many of the bureaucrats who man the levers of the bureaucracy in the Afghan government today under the Taliban are actually chaps who were trained, by India and other countries as part of the whole effort to prop up the Afghan state. So I think this is something we should really seriously be looking at because this has long been sort of pending. The
Okay.
other thing India should be doing is certainly engaging all sides in Afghanistan, which doesn't mean supporting, an armed opposition necessarily. So engage the Taliban by all means, but certainly, keep your channels open with all stakeholders
Sure.
because political ground in Afghanistan shifts very rapidly. If you look at all major conversations on Afghanistan, actually India has not
Yes.
been having those conversations. I mean, imagine a country like Austria, which is a tiny European country with no direct stake in Afghanistan. I mean, they are hosting dialogues in Afghanistan. Turkey has been playing all sides for the longest time. So
Yes.
I think we need
And
to
this
be
is
doing more.
our neighborhood. We should be playing a much bigger role. Completely agree with you on that,
Especially,
General Meston. But is there trouble for Pakistan if it's hemmed in on all sides? If there's trouble along the Durand line and trouble along the Ratcliffe line for Pakistan?
Very true. Firstly, I think it is total strategic advantage to India, and I will just justify why. Firstly, in 2013, I had met Mullah brothers, so not Mullah brother, Mullah Omar's classmate, and I recollect then the so-called the Shura over there, that is the Kandahar and the Helmand people. They were very clear that they wanted to align with India, and why? Because that time Pakistan Army and ISI had planned to target Mullah Omar, which actually they did it, and it was officially declared in 2015, though he was killed in 2013, and they wanted to replace him by Haqqani group. So therefore, they were telling
Okay.
me that we want to align with India and start hitting the ISI. And now, what advantage I will tell you what it accrues is all these Taliban people have been trained and handled by ISI. So therefore,
Yes.
these people are aware about the ISI handles everything, their location, their methodology, and therefore that gives a lot of strategic leverage to India that we can take advantage jointly with Taliban, because I'm very clear the Taliban wants to hit them back. They are not going to
Okay.
change their stance, and the good thing is even Haqqani today, as the interior minister, has changed his stance quite a bit. So as one thing, and you also asked a question about investment. I am very
Yes.
clear. The Afghanistan has got $4.1 trillion worth mineral reserves and large number of rare earth minerals. This is again a strategic advantage to India, and that is one of the reasons President Trump is looking for Bagram airfield also, so that he continues with all this mining. Chinese are doing a large network of mining in Badakhshan and many of the areas, including copper
But
and the.
Ambassador Kaju, in case we were to increase our footprint in Afghanistan, wouldn't be targets once again? We've lost a number of people who are working on the Zaranj-Delaram highway. Pakistan would try its dirty tricks to ensure India doesn't do well in Afghanistan.
I think there will be risks, but nations, for their interests, have to take risks. We will have to safeguard our people, and I think the Taliban would try to assist us. But our security that we'll have to provide people will have to be ramped up very considerably. If you permit, two more points. One, I entirely endorse what Raghav Sharma has said. Uh, while keeping our security concerns in mind, we've got to be far more relaxed on visas. It doesn't mean you open the floodgates, but yes, you can't do what you did in closing the doors shut entirely. And third, I think we've got to proceed soberly. We've got to proceed somewhat cautiously. I'm aware of the international context. In Afghanistan, it's always important to project yourself as an independent power. I thought that I got the greatest purchase when I said, "Look, we are your friends. We will do all that we can. Our resources are limited, but we are not aligned to anyone. We are India." And one last anecdote, if you allow me to tell you,
Sure.
Raghav, and you might find this interesting. Uh, in 2002, I was invited to Paktika, and the Pakistanis got wild, and it was the governor of Paktika then was uh, a gentleman who was ex-Taliban, and Karzai too got very upset. Why did you go there? I said I was invited, so I went there, and there. They sort of told me about Pakistan, etc. And I told them, I said, look, it is a happy country which can develop good relations with its neighbors. India is a big country. We can take care of Pakistan. You are vulnerable. They were very surprised. They took me to a smaller room where there were
Yeah.
just a few of them. And they put the same question to me. I said, look, We will do all that we can. But if you can have good relations with Pakistan, go ahead. It's your choices. We will never determine your choices. But I knew for a fact that the Pakistanis do not understand, at the end of the day,
Yes.
understand the Afghan psyche,
Oh,
which is very,
absolutely.
very,
No, that's a very pertinent point you
strange.
make.
They
Sir, the
just
last
don't
30 seconds I have
understand
on
it.
this part of the show, I have to bring in Dr. Tara Kartha to understand there are many in India who say India's on the wrong side of history. Look at the way Taliban treat their women. Look at the way that women were not even permitted to a press conference of the Taliban foreign minister, Afghan foreign minister today. Why should India be engaging so extensively with Afghanistan? Where do you stand on that, ma'am?
No, obviously, I hate that policy, especially for once. I remember in Kabul, I mean, the women were, they were all over the place. They were working, they were dressing what they liked. That was Kabul once, and I've seen that Kabul. So it is tragic, but that's why I kept saying, this Kandahar lobby. I don't know what the influence is. Much of the reforms which Mutaki, the Doha lobby, is trying to do is blocked by the Kandahar lot. But
Okay.
nonetheless, we have to go ahead, particularly if I can just make one point here. I disagree a little bit with Ambassador because I think it's enough time for caution. Let's go ahead with this. This is the
Okay.
time you have to move fast, go with visas, go with assistance, particularly go with counter narcotics assistance. They've done a fantastic
Yes.
job. So that's something where we need to help in giving them assistance to replace narcotics with other farm products.
Fair enough.
That's the area
I've
we
actually run out of time on this part of the show. Ambassador Kaju and Sushant Sareen and Dr. Sharma and Jill Meshton, I'd love to come back to you for more on this. Perhaps we'll have a longer discussion in the days and weeks ahead.